Dear viewers, this is an emotional story of how a Texas female nurse found an unexpected love while fulfilling the last wish of a prisoner on death row. In the middle of pain and darkness, two hearts began to understand each other, and a bond was born that neither time nor walls could break. This is not just a story of death and prison, it is also a story of love, sacrifice, and hope. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories like this that touch the heart. Sandra walked slowly down the long gray hallway, the sound of her shoes echoing against the concrete walls. She was used to hospitals, where the air smelled of medicine and the sound of machines filled the rooms. But here, in the prison, the air was heavy, silent, and cold. The men behind the bars were not patients. They were prisoners waiting for time to run out. Yet her heart beat differently whenever she reached the last cell, Daniel's cell. Daniel had been on death row for years. To many, he was just another number, another man the world had already judged. But to Sandra, he was something else. His eyes told a story she couldn't turn away from. They weren't the eyes of a monster. They were the eyes of a man carrying pain too heavy for his shoulders. The first time she spoke to him, she had only gone there to check his health. His files said he was weak, restless, and often silent. But when she greeted him, he lifted his head slowly and whispered, "You talk to me like I'm human." That day never left Sandra's mind. In her own life, she knew loneliness. She was not married, no children. Long hours at work, empty nights at home. She gave care to everyone, but received little in return. So when Daniel looked at her with gratitude just for saying hello, she felt something stir in her heart. Day by day, her visits became longer. What started as short medical checks became quiet conversations. Daniel would sit on his small bed, his hands folded together, while Sandra leaned gently against the bars, listening. "Do you believe people can change?" Daniel once asked her. His voice was deep, but it carried sadness. Sandra thought for a moment before answering, "I believe everyone has a chance, Daniel, even if the world doesn't see it." He gave her a soft smile then, a smile she had never seen on his face before. That smile stayed with her all night when she went home. The prison guards sometimes teased her. "You treat him like he's family," one said. But Sandra ignored them. They couldn't see what she saw. One evening, she brought him an extra apple from the hospital cafeteria. It wasn't allowed, but she couldn't help herself. Daniel looked at the apple as if it was gold. He held it in his hand for a long time before taking a bite. Tears came into his eyes. "It's been years since I tasted something simple like this," he said. "You don't know what it means." Sandra felt her chest tighten. It was such a small thing, yet it showed her how much he had lost. She began to notice little things about him. The way he folded his blanket neatly every morning. The way he spoke carefully, as if choosing his words mattered. The way his eyes softened only when he looked at her. Sometimes they laughed. He would tell her stories of when he was a boy, fishing with his father, running barefoot in the fields. For a moment, the prison walls seemed to disappear. But other times, his voice broke when he talked about his mistakes. "I don't deserve kindness," he once said, lowering his head. Sandra reached through the bars, her fingers brushing his hand. "Everyone deserves kindness, Daniel. Even you." That touch lingered between them, unspoken, but powerful. Sandra knew she was walking a dangerous line. Nurses were not meant to get close to prisoners, but her heart didn't care. With every visit, her feelings grew. She didn't see him as just a prisoner anymore. She saw him as a man who had been left behind, a man who carried regret, a man who somehow had found a place in her heart. The nights after seeing him became harder for her. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering why fate had brought her here. Why him? Why now? But each morning, when she walked back into that gray hallway, the answer was clear. She couldn't let him face the darkness alone. The other prisoners noticed, too. Some whispered about how Daniel seemed lighter when the nurse visited. Others stared quietly, perhaps jealous of the bond forming before their eyes. Sandra didn't care about whispers. She cared only about the man behind the bars who had become more than a patient to her. And Daniel, he knew his days were numbered. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel forgotten. He didn't feel like just a number waiting to die. He felt seen. He felt human. Late one afternoon, as Sandra prepared to leave, Daniel called softly, "Sandra!" She turned, her heart already beating faster. "If I could ask for just one thing before I go," he said quietly, "would you listen?" Sandra froze in place. His words wrapped around her like a secret she wasn't ready for. She looked into his eyes, and the weight of his unspoken wish filled the silence. Her breath caught, but she nodded slowly. "Yes, Daniel, I'll listen." That night, Sandra couldn't sleep. She knew the real story was only beginning. Sandra could still hear Daniel's voice long after she had left the prison that night. "If I could ask for just one thing before I go, would you listen?" His words rolled over at her mind like waves that refused to rest. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her body still, but her thoughts restless. She knew she had crossed a line already, caring too much, feeling too much. But now she felt something even deeper tugging at her heart. What if his last wish was something she couldn't give? What if it was something she was too afraid to hear? The next day, Sandra walked into the prison with a weight in her chest. The guards at the gate greeted her casually, but she felt as though everyone could see her secret. She carried it in her steps, in her eyes, in the way her hands gripped her medical bag a little tighter. When she reached Daniel's cell, he was sitting on the bed, his elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped together. His head lifted when he saw her, and his lips curved into the faintest smile. "You came back," he said softly, his voice filled with relief. Sandra gave a small smile of her own. "Of course. I said I would." For a moment, they just looked at each other. No words, just silence, heavy with meaning. She felt her breath catch, the air between them charged with something she didn't want to name. "I thought a lot about what you asked me yesterday," Sandra said carefully. Daniel's eyes softened. And I'm ready to listen," she whispered. He studied her face, as though searching for courage in her eyes. "I don't want to waste the little time I have left pretending I don't feel something. Sandra, you've been the only person who has seen me as more than a prisoner. You've given me kindness when I didn't deserve it, and because of that, I feel close to you. Closer than I've been to anyone in years." Sandra's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She wanted to look away, but his gaze held her. "I feel close to you too," she admitted softly. "Closer than I should." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. She wasn't supposed to say that. Nurses weren't supposed to speak like that to prisoners. But in that moment, all the rules seemed far away. Daniel's smile was gentle, almost sad. "Then I'm not crazy. I thought maybe it was just me." Sandra felt her throat tighten. "It's not just you. The silence after that was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they wanted to say, but couldn't. Sandra's hand slowly lifted toward the bars, and Daniel mirrored her. Their fingers didn't touch, but they hovered close, separated by cold steel. For a heartbeat, it felt like the bars didn't exist. Sandra pulled her hand back quickly, her face flushing. "We shouldn't." "I know," Daniel said quietly. "I know we can't. But in here, when you talk to me, when you smile, it feels like I'm alive again, like I'm not already gone." Her chest ached hearing those words. She wanted to reach through, to hold his face in her hands, to promise him he wasn't alone. But all she could do was stand there, her heart breaking in silence. That night, Sandra sat at home by the window, staring at the stars. She thought of Daniel sitting alone in his cell. Did he look at the same stars? Did he think of her the way she thought of him? She closed her eyes and let a tear slip down her cheek. The days turned into weeks, and Sandra's bond with Daniel grew deeper. Their conversations stretched longer, sometimes about small things, childhood games, favorite foods, memories of simpler days. Other times they spoke of heavy things, regrets, mistakes, and dreams that would never come true. One evening, Daniel leaned close to the bars, his voice low. "Sandra, do you ever think about what could have been? If we had met somewhere else, in another life?" Sandra's breath caught. Her eyes lingered on his face, memorizing every line, every shadow. "Sometimes," she admitted. Daniel's lips curved into a wistful smile. "In that other life, I would have asked you to dance. I would have made you laugh. I would have treated you the way you deserve." Sandra felt tears pressing against her eyes. "And I might have said yes." They both laughed then, but the laughter was fragile, breaking at the edges. Behind it lay the truth neither of them dared to say aloud, that in another life, maybe love would have been possible. But here, in this place, it was only a fragile dream. Still, even a dream was enough to keep them going. The guards noticed their closeness, but said nothing. Perhaps they had grown used to seeing the nurse and the prisoner share quiet moments. Or perhaps they understood that even condemned men needed something to hold on to. One afternoon, as Sandra prepared to leave, Daniel stopped her. His voice was urgent, almost trembling. "Sandra, I need to tell you my last wish. I don't want to wait any longer." Sandra turned, her heart hammering. She stepped back to the bars, her eyes searching his. "What is it?" she whispered. Daniel took a deep breath. "When the day comes, I want the truth to come out. I don't want to die as the man they say I am. There are things you don't know, things that could change everything." Sandra's eyes widened. "Daniel, what are you saying?" But he only shook his head, a shadow crossing his face. "Not today. Soon. I just need you to promise me something." Sandra swallowed hard. "What?" "Promise me you won't give up on me. Promise me you'll listen till the end." Her voice trembled, but she nodded. "I promise." Daniel closed his eyes, his shoulders sagging with relief. "That's all I need." Sandra walked away slowly, her legs weak, her chest tight. She knew now that this was more than just a prisoner's wish. This was something bigger, something that could change both their lives forever. The night after Daniel asked for her promise, Sandra barely slept. His words echoed again and again. "There are things you don't know, things that could change everything." What could he mean? Was he hiding a secret that might clear his name? Or was it just the regrets, a man running out of time? Sandra didn't know, but deep in her heart, she felt it was important. The next morning, she walked into the prison heavier than ever. When she reached Daniel's cell, he was sitting quietly, staring at the floor. He lifted his head when she called his name, and the sadness in his eyes made her chest ache. "You came," he said softly.
"I promised I would," Sandra replied.
She stood close to the bars, lowering her voice. "Daniel, you said, there are things I don't know. What did you mean?" Daniel leaned forward, his hands gripping the bars. "I've carried this for years, Sandra. Everyone believes I'm guilty. Everyone believes I deserve to die. But the truth is, I was set up. I didn't kill that man. The company I worked for wanted me gone because I refused to do what they asked. They put the blame on me, and I've been paying for it ever since." Sandra's eyes widened. "Are you saying you were innocent all along?" Daniel's eyes burned with pain. "I made mistakes in my life, Sandra, but not this one. I was framed. I kept quiet because I had no proof. But before they caught me, I told someone where to find it. I told a woman I trusted. Her name was Sandra, too. She worked with me back then. If anyone can find what I left behind, it's her." Sandra's hands trembled. She had not expected this. Do you still think the evidence is out there?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, I know it is. And I can't leave this world without trying one last time to clear my name. That's my wish, Sandra. Not freedom, not comfort, but truth. I need the truth to come out." Sandra's heart twisted. She had thought his last wish might be something simple, like seeing the sunset one last time, or hearing music, or eating a favorite meal. But this was bigger. This was life and death. She reached for his hand through the bars, her voice trembling. "Then we'll find it. I'll fight for you, Daniel. I promise." For the first time, Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "No one has ever said that to me. Not once. Thank you, Sandra." That moment sealed something between them. It was more than nurse and prisoner now. It was two souls standing against the world together. Days passed quickly after that. Sandra used every free hour to think, to search, to ask quiet questions. She knew the risk she was taking. Nurses were not supposed to interfere, but her heart refused to walk away. She started visiting records, searching old papers, and trying to trace the woman Daniel had mentioned. She didn't know where it would lead, but she knew she had to try. Meanwhile, Daniel's time was running out. The date for his execution was set. The prison grew heavier with each passing day. Other prisoners whispered about it. The guards walked more stiffly, and Daniel himself grew quieter. But whenever Sandra came, his eyes lit up again, even if only for a short time. One afternoon, as she sat with him by the bars, Daniel said, "Sandra, if they take me, don't cry. You've already given me more than I ever dreamed of. Just promise me you'll keep fighting, no matter what happens to me." Sandra's throat closed up. "Don't talk like that. I'm not giving up on you." But Daniel only smiled, that sad smile she had come to know so well. "You've already saved me in here," he whispered, tapping his chest. "No one can take that away." The night before his execution, Sandra sat by her window again, tears streaming down her face. She prayed for strength. She prayed for a miracle. The next morning, the prison was colder than usual. The guards came with heavy steps. Sandra stood in the corridor as Daniel was led out of his cell. He wore a simple prison uniform, his hands bound in front of him. His head was lowered, but when he looked up and saw her, his eyes filled with tears. "Don't let them forget me," he whispered as he walked past. Sandra reached out, her fingers brushing against his arm for the briefest second before the guards pushed him forward.
Her knees nearly buckled as she watched.
This was it. The man she had come to care for, the man who had taught her about love even in chains, was walking to his death. But then, chaos. A guard rushed in, a paper in his hand, his voice urgent. "Stop! Stop the process." Everyone froze. The paper shook in his grip as he announced, "The court has issued a halt. Execution is suspended pending further investigation." Sandra gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Daniel's legs gave way beneath him, and he fell to his knees, tears pouring down his face. He sobbed openly, his chest heaving as though the weight of years had just crashed down on him. "I thought it was over," he cried. "I thought today was the end." Sandra rushed forward, kneeling beside him, her own tears falling. She wanted to hold him, to comfort him, but the guards stood close. Still, her voice broke through. "You're still here, Daniel. We have time. I promise. I'll use it." Daniel looked at her with eyes full of gratitude and heartbreak. "You saved me," he whispered. "Even if just for one more day." Sandra shook her head, her voice firm through her tears. "Not one day. I'll fight until the truth comes out. This isn't the end, Daniel. This is the beginning." The guards lifted him again, but the hall no longer felt the same. Sandra's promise, the court's order, and Daniel's tears hung in the air like fire. Everyone knew something bigger was about to unfold. That afternoon, as Sandra left the prison, the sun burned brighter than she had ever seen. The fight had only just begun. Dear viewers, what you have just watched is only the beginning. Sandra's fight for Daniel has just started. And part 2 will reveal everything, the secrets, the hidden truth, and whether love and justice can win against time. If you're ready for part 2, type part 2 in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. So we'll know you are ready and drop it for you. And don't forget, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends so you don't miss the next chapter of this emotional and powerful story.